Brothers Off Script. I'm Jerry.
I'm Ryan.
And today we're talking about thought crimes, what you're guilty of just because you thought it.
Implicit bias and what you can do about that. Stay tuned for more. And we're back. We're going to talk about some things today that are going on in this world. We've got a lot of craziness, a lot of
news.
A lot of news. A lot of guilt before evidence nowadays. It seems like people are talking about if you're biased. Like in my case, I'm white, so I have white privilege, despite the fact that I think that I've worked for everything I earned, and somehow I still didn't earn it. And we've talked about this on other other episodes where we're discussing specifically that you have to get out and work for pretty much everything you have if you want to have things.
If you want to keep the things you do have, you have to work for them too.
I mean, I've had the lights shut off. I've had my electricity, my water turn off. Nobody came to my door and said, "Oh, by the way, you're white, so we don't have to worry about that bill."
I've bounced checks. The bank still expected me to pay my bills on my credit card.
Yeah.
And my race, I don't think, was a factor. What's interesting though is it doesn't mean that there isn't privilege that you're unaware of. It does mean that we are, I think, privileged because for the majority of our life, we had two parents who were, as far as we could tell, they were happily married together and everything was going good, and we had money and we had food in our home and we had a warm house and we were safe from crime. That was definitely a privilege of our lifestyle. I think we also had a moral, compass that was talked about. I think that's a privilege of our lifestyle.
Raised in a Christianity-based household, I think that it gave us a lot of guides, for this world that we're in, the rough water we're in now. I mean, it doesn't help hardly at all. I can't cite my religious beliefs and get somebody who disagrees with me to back off. They won't go, "Oh, wow, you're of the Christian faith, so you must be inherently a good person then." Because I mean, there's plenty of people who will say that I'm a Christian and still do bad things to other human beings, just based on the fact that they feel a different way about that person, and that could be their bias. That could be the thing that they are most guilty of. Their sin is that they don't love their fellow man, maybe not enough anyways to let someone be. But then there's the ones who in the face of everything, they give you every sign and every indication that they are a good person, that anything that they would do, they would take the coat off their back for a homeless person or something. But if you were to witness that person, it happens a lot in our day-to-day lives where someone we know as one way at work or something. We'll see them outside of work and they're a completely different person. And this happens a lot. And it's you get to know people in certain situations and you say, "Wow, I thought you were a good guy, and turns out you're kind of a dirtbag, so I don't know if I want to hang out with you."
Well, and I think we all have sensitivities to that stuff too. Like, I, especially as being a person with a lot of kids, if I see somebody beating up on their kid or screaming at their kid, I'm really bothered by that. Like, it's not okay for me to just be neutral to the fact that somebody's beating up their kid.
That's why I do it behind closed doors. I mean, don't let the bruises show.
Phone books.
Yeah.
But I think that I'm super sensitive to that. I have kids that are from a different racial background than I am, so I'm sensitive to racism. I have a bunch of girls.
Yeah.
So in my workplace, I'm very sensitive to people who are sexually harassing other people, and I tend to treat those things more severely. Whereas if somebody curses, I don't care. If somebody downloads a pirated copy of a movie somewhere, I also don't care. Are those things bad? Yeah, they're bad to individually different people. But I just don't care about those particular kinds of things because they don't affect me. They don't affect anyone I know, and so I selfishly believe, it's fine.
On the scale of things that are going to affect your outcome or your lifestyle or anything like that. They're pretty low on the scale there,
Absolutely.
as far as their weight against other actions you can take. But at the same time, you know, we talk thought crime. You see a look from somebody. You talked about this back in the day when you first had Olivia and Summer, and you know you're a white guy walking through the supermarket with two black girls, and you're getting the looks. And
Oh yeah.
no matter what that person is actually thinking, their outward sign says judgment, confusion, disapproval.
That you're doing something wrong.
And there's no way it's wrong, but it still exists in this person's world that is incorrect. That's not the way things are done around here. And so you're a victim of thought crime.
Yep.
No, they don't have to come up to you and tell you, you know, everything that they say. Like the classic line is, you know, I don't want to sound like a racist, but anything you say after that, that's a joke, you're a racist.
Yep.
So it's unavoidable that some people are going to notice, because if you have two eyes in your head, hey, if you have one eye in your head and it kind of works, it's a little hazy, we know people like that, they still are going to see the differences in color in people's skin. Anyone who says I don't see color is an idiot, because you should see color, but you shouldn't focus on that as the character of the being. That doesn't define the person. It's just a descriptor about that person if you had to describe them to somebody else. He's not just tall, he's a tall black person. That's okay if you got to describe him and other 40 other Jareds or whatever. But like today on the news, or this is actually a couple of days ago now, I listened to the news and they made it a pretty big deal, and it was the first African American flight, well, black Americans, because I don't think they're from Africa. They don't qualify. But they were the first female black flight crew for an Alaskan flight. Like they made a big deal about this. The fact that two women, also being black, were the flight crew for this flight. The first time in history has ever happened, apparently, on Alaska. Why is it important? Why not just say, I didn't get upset in the sense that I'm like, man, I can't believe they're talking about black people. It was more like, why is this still a thing? Why can't it just be, you know, hey, congrats on being the flight crew today?
I don't
why,
think.
Why do you have to be celebrated
I
for your
think this
differences?
idea that we should identify people by groups is wrong. I think it's wrong when the Nazis identified Jews as a group. I think it's wrong when the Ku Klux Klan identified people as a group. I think it's wrong when the alt-right guys identify people as a group. I also think it's wrong when Black Lives Matter says all white people or all cops or this or that are all bad.
Racist.
Right? I think it's wrong when everybody who's pro-choice says that everybody who's pro-life is stupid and hates women. And I think that it's wrong when Republicans say that all Democrats are horrible, and when Democrats say all Republicans are horrible. Like this idea that you're going to look at a group of people and you're going to hate them all because you don't agree with some members of the group is wrong. And yet you see it on the left side of the aisle politically, the right side of the aisle politically, with people of all different kinds of race. You see this willingness to stereotype and reduce people to the collective group, and then they say that that's your identity. All men think this way. All women think this way. Oh, really? Well, what about people who are gay? Do they also think that way? What about people who are transgender? Do they also think that? It doesn't make any sense when you ask, what is your evidence for that? It makes no sense.
The circle graph always shows the correlations between groups in maybe small points, but there is always an overlap between the groups. For everything I hate about the person, there's 5 things that I would like about the person, but I can't get past the fact that I hate them, so I'll never find out those 5 things. If you take 2 sports fans of opposing teams and you get them in the same room watching the same game, let's say it's Super Bowl, the last 2 teams, whoever those were, I can't remember now, it's been so long. It hasn't been, but I don't really care. You put those same 2 fans in the room, and more than likely they're going to give each other some crap about the team, but at the same time, they're enjoying watching the game. And you can't do that on any other field. You can't do that with politics because you're inherently you're opposing the person in every ideal they have, because as long as they succeed, you fail. And that's not the case with race. It's not the case with race. There is too much
or gender.
Or gender. There is too much. There are the proven, women make less than men, and men make more than women, and there's certain people who are going to be more advantaged than other people. But it's not the fact, like the idea that, and we've talked about that too, is it sucks when someone is brought up in a bad situation. It really does. Your daughters might not, they might not have lived.
Right.
If you hadn't adopted them. It's a possibility. It's not necessarily a good chance that somebody else might not come in, but there's a possibility that based on their life before you, they might not have lived. And now they're going to have many opportunities. And as long as they're not stigmatized because of the skin color, which thankfully society is a lot more open now about that. There's no whites only, blacks only type of thing, where I see the reverse, where it seems like certain groups are preferring to be separated.
Yeah.
Which is really strange. It's like, didn't we get rid of segregation and now you want to bring it back? You can't be in this. This is a colored only meeting. But they're going to have opportunities now based on the fact that they have a good family structure.
It is, but it's also like I think it's a good thing, and I'm talking in broad scale, for people to have groups of similar interests. This is a group of people who like Harry Potter. This is a group of people who like guns. This is a group of people who like hunting for rocks. This is a group of people who like watching birds. Okay, cool. Fine. The Boy Scouts has gotten rid of the boy part, right? So now it's just Scouts.
But the Girl Scouts is still just Girl Scouts.
It is.
Or maybe there's trans in the Girl Scouts.
Well, I'm sure, but but the point is that if I was running the Boy Scouts as a business, right, which it is a business, it makes sense. You just expanded your potential market by 50%. So for all the people who are like, I'm offended, there's girls in my Boy Scout meeting. Okay. All right. You're not thinking about it from the business perspective. Those are customers. They're customers for the swag, the uniform, the handkerchief, the weird shorts with the tall socks, the badge, merit badge thing.
But as
the hat, the book.
As a previous Weeblo myself, there is no. It's been not proven so much as theorized and heavily debated against, but that a boy needs to be surrounded by other men, male figures, to learn how to be a good man, right?
No question. But if I'm the guy running the Boy Scouts of America and I look at this as a marketing issue, if I was selling this cup and I was like, I'm only going to sell this cup to boys because, it's got Pinky in the Brain on it. And boys would like Pinky in the Brain. Sure. They're both men, right? Men mouse men, right? Okay, but if the next guy comes along and says, I'm going to sell this cup to men and women, he's going to do, or she's going to do better than I did because they made a bigger pool.
You can increase your market share.
That's all it is. This is a market share play. The Boy Scouts of America are taking out the Girl Scouts.
The idea, right, is that as young boys and young men, and I used to remember hearing about them as almost like Jedi Knights, basically Eagle Scouts.
Oh yeah,
right. I heard about them from young age to older age. Where I think is Doug was an Eagle Scout, wasn't he?
I don't know,
but I mean, he went on to have a military career, and he's got a good career now, and he's a pretty decent guy, and maybe there are some things that he was able to learn because it was a male-only type of environment that made him who he is today.
Sure.
A good possibility.
But I think there will be somebody that comes along that says, for those people who want that, they'll say, okay, we're going to have our individual group. The premise, though, that they've been sued into this choice, right, which is the thought crime, right? The thought crime is you wanted to have the Boy Scouts. Well, that's a boys only thing. You're making girls not eligible. You're forcing our girls to not be able to go. So we, the parents of a girl who randomly decided she wanted to be in the Boy Scouts, we're going to sue in civil court a nonprofit organization, take money from them so that we can have the right to go? What the heck kind of a jacked up person are you?
Well, this is why I say don't buy Girl Scout cookies, but at the same time, it tastes good.
I don't want to buy Girl Scout cookies because they support some stuff I don't agree with.
There is the YMCA, Young Men's Christian Association, right?
Yeah, but they don't talk about...
And then there's the YWCA, Young Women's. And then there's the Boy Scouts, and then there's the Girl Scouts. So if you already have a separate organization that exists in almost every city across our great nation, to go to and be part of a troop and learn how to braid whatever those little rubber tassel-y keychain braids are, and go to camps and learn how to start fires and tie knots and do all this other fun stuff, or do makeup tutorials and watch videos and have sleepaway camps and all these other fun little things that you can do as individuals. The reason to do it as separate sexes is a bunch of girls and a couple of den mothers and a bunch of boys and a couple of scoutmasters, right? As long as the scoutmaster's not trying to touch a kid, then these two separate organizations can have safe co-experiences separately, and then come together later on. Because I knew there was multiple organizational times where they would come together and have scout-offs and all kinds of things.
They can learn the same stuff. I'll tell you what, I don't want any teenage boy within 100 feet of my daughters in a sleeping bag.
Well, they'll have to create...
No!
I think the theory is still going to exist. They'll just have to create an entire new thing for it. This is a G.I. Jane situation. She's got to come in, get her own bunk, do the whole thing. What was the no women on submarines thing, right?
So there was situations where they had tried originally with some officers, female officers on submarines, and there was sexual harassment, and there were injuries, and there was assaults. And just like in the surface military, there's sexual harassment and assaults, right? Now, it's actually, the statistics are very clear, there are fewer incidents than are reported in the general public, but the percentages are all different, so who knows whether it's a good indicator or not. It's never right that anybody gets assaulted. But the reason they don't let women on submarines is because 150 dudes are going to try to chase the girl. That's it. It's that simple. And if your brain is on chasing the girl, your brain is not on doing your job. That's the reason why.
Biology is a
pretty powerful motivator.
Biology exists, and we, as of yet, with science, with hormone replacements, and all these other things, you still can't change the fact that someone who's born as one is not another, despite chemical or surgical changes. They are not the same thing as if they were born that way. No matter what they say, no matter what they do. And
it's not about how people feel.
My thought crime is that I think that the differences in people can be your strength, and when you remove the difference in a person, you're taking away that person's individual right to be different than someone else and use that as their own character strength. But to look at someone, anyone, and say, you are different than me, so therefore you are less than me, is the crime. But when you take away my ability to be different, like you have to say that because of who I am only allowed to be one way or another. It's doing just the same thing as to say that I am less than human, which is what was done to slaves, which is what was done to many different races.
Yeah.
There has been people out there, and people in power have said, you are less than me, so therefore you are not human. And that's a terrible thing, and I'm glad that that doesn't exist anymore. And I know there's a few groups out there that still think that way.
Or want that to come back.
But they are very small, and every time they pop up, what happens? A big thing. But to put their stigmatism on the rest of society, and to say that I can't be who I am is just like anyone would say, that's racist. It's not reverse racism, it's straight racism.
Yeah.
You know, you're just being racist in the opposite way, but because you're of a minority, it somehow isn't wrong.
Well, I think it's always wrong, and I think that
But the criminal element goes away.
Sure.
If I was to imprison someone, or if I was to kick somebody out, then what happens to the florist? What happens to the baker? What happens to all these people who disagree with someone's moral or color or whatever it is, and then they push them away and say, like back in the day when you used to have the right to refuse service to anyone with a little sign on your door.
Yeah.
And now you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I still think that's so. This is the challenge with a libertarian position, right? Like for me, I think that you have to let the market decide whether or not someone's business is good or bad. I think to set up a legal system where we say we have outlawed discrimination and we've outlawed these thought crimes, and we're not willing to wait for the market forces to do the correction, right? Because the market force is correct. If I look at this guy and I say, I'm not going to sell anything to you because I don't like the color green, and he goes, well, I'm going to wear the color green every day, and that's the way it is, and you still have to sell to me. That's the government telling me that I have to work for them, right? I have to, I don't want to work for him. In any capacity, I don't want to give him his own cutback, okay? But because the government says, well, you can't discriminate against somebody wearing the color green, like, it should be up to the market to say, well, look, if you don't sell the people...
What's a freedom, really?
Yeah,
and you have to break down that whole thing.
If you don't sell...
we
don't have time for that, but I'm just saying, like, the idea that the government regulates action, behavior, and thought, and regulates the prices and the goods that can be sold and the services that can be provided and the actions that people have to do is to me is an overreach of power. And that means, and this is why I don't like it, because you have to then hire a cop to enforce it. You have to hire a judge to litigate it. You have to hire the lawyer to sue it. You have to hire the bureaucrat to write the law. You have to hire the administrator to update the law every year, and you have to hire the secretary to print copies of the law out and post them on everybody's door. You have to hire the website diviner to put the new law up on the website. You have to hire that friggin' app guy to build an app about it. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It should just be, hey, I don't want to sell stuff to you. And he goes, well, screw you, buddy. I'm going to go to your competitor down the road. And you know what? I'm going to tell my 25 friends to go to your competitor down the road. And that's how we're going to sort out issues in our society. And the reality was, there was a time where segregation, which in large part was foisted on our country by Southern Democrats, okay, just so our history is clear, segregation was a tool of the South, and the Republican Party was built on the freedom of slaves and the abolition of slavery. So we're not going to let market forces dictate that change. I understand that, but I think that the government has continued to grab more and more and more power in those regards to regulate what's in his head, to regulate what's in your head.
And until they come out with the Minority Report machine that can literally stop the crime from happening, and of course they have to write that crime into law. But if you're not in Canada, you're still safe. You can think what you want. Just don't be a jerk to the people around you. If you can avoid it, avoid jerks. And I think the world keeps going on if you just mind your own business and try to be nice to other people who are minding their own business.
Carry your responsibility and do what you've got to do in your life and manage yourself.
Yeah. So thanks for sticking around this long. If you have, like, subscribe, hit that bell, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.